What is up? Welcome into this Wednesday episode of Pushing the Pile post Cutdown Day, which we'll get to in a second here. Jam-packed show for you. But first, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Like I said, Kyle, Cutdown Day. We need like the CBS injury music after Cutdown Day. It's always solemn. It's always kind of a tough one. We have that on the docket for you. We have some trades that went down. We have the CeeDee Lamb deal that went down. And then, of course, what you guys came for, the NFC preview, the burning question for each of them at the end of the show. If you guys missed the AFC preview on Monday, go check that out after the show. But Kyle, set the stage for me how a Cutdown Day looks like in an NFL locker room.
Yeah, obviously, we've both looked at it from different sides of the coin here, being a player and getting to see some of your friends not make it to the season after all you've been through. I mean, some of these guys get drafted, and you can see the Colts. They've got three or four guys going out the door that they got drafted. So some of these guys get drafted. There's very high expectations. Your family, in some cases, they move to where you play. You have wives, girlfriends, kids that have to move. You go there and play. You put your whole blood, sweat, and tears into it. Next thing you know, it wasn't good enough. And as for a player who was never cut during the preseason, I saw so many of these things happen. I saw so many of the locker cleanouts. It's a really tough time in the NFL, and it's a time where some of the stars on the team really have to take a step back, get some perspective, and empathize with the guys on their team. Because look, you know, they tell you at the beginning, this team won't look the same in August, and at the end of the year, it won't look the same. Well, that's the case, and it's no more real than yesterday at 4 or 5 p.m. When these rosters got to 53. So as a player, you have to look at it one of two ways. One way is I got to go get another job because I'm clearly not going to be able to cut it. And there's some guys like we saw in Denver in their third quarterback situation, Jarrett Stidham. I do have the skill set to play in the National Football League. I am a guy. So kudos to people with both of these mindsets, either or. But I would encourage guys to stick it out. And there's a lot of good names out there, Mike, and we're going to get into these names here in a second. Cutdown days are hard, but now this is the squad. This is the space shuttle is leaving now, and nobody's getting on, nobody's coming off. We are going into outer space together. The 53 of us plus staff, that's what's going to happen.
That's the thing. It was always going to get 53. It is a sad day for those who don't make it, but it's also a happy day for a lot of people that weren't necessarily thinking they were for sure going to be on rosters. So kudos to them as well. Some notables here from Cut Day. A lot of vet wide receivers going out the door, whether it's Noah Brown for Houston, who to me was the most notable, was the most biggest surprise of anyone. Man had 173 yards in a game just last year when they had some injuries at the wide receiver position. Really came on strong for them. See where he ends up. A lot of Dallas fans want him back. That was obviously where he was prior to Houston. Kadarius Toney, not much of a surprise there, but they gave up some draft capital for him a couple years ago. Never quite figured it out. Allen Robinson with the Giants. If you can't make this Giants wide receiver depth chart, that might be
that's a shame.
That might be the end of the road for him.
That's a shame.
Tim Patrick, Denver, a surprise release after he finally looked healthy after 2 straight years of injuries. He already got swooped up by the Detroit Lions. Obviously, Puka Nakua's brother cut from the New Orleans Saints. Some other notables, Lewis Cine, former first rounder only 2 years ago, probably the biggest, draft capital sort of cut. He obviously that rookie year though, big knee injury, never fully recovered from that, already out the door in Minnesota after only 2 seasons as their first rounder. I think that might have been one of Quessie's first picks. Desmond Ridder, who the Cardinals just traded for this offseason, gave up Rondale Moore to go get him. He's out the door in Arizona, unfortunately.
Social media is brutal, by the way. I sent you some memes
Unfortunately.
yesterday. It was our guy Desmond Ridder doing an ad campaign for, I believe it was DoorDash or Grubhub.
Nothing wrong with DoorDash.
They
He's got a
showed
second
him in like
income
a
now.
Honda Element delivering pizzas, and I was like, this is brutal. This is what Twitter is now. It's just going to ridicule these guys. But, they're humans too. So Desmond Ridder and all these guys, good luck to them. It's a shame. And for guys like Allen Robinson, who are at the end of the road, hopefully he can find maybe a team that needs that veteran presence. And then, some of these names we may never see again. Bailey Zappi, a guy who was a starting quarterback. People were calling for him to be the guy in New England not too long ago. So things change quickly.
Some surprises, but more often than not, if these guys, the veteran guys that are getting cut, there's a reason. It's not. It's sometimes like the first year guys that get cut and get onto practice squads, there's still hope for or whatnot. But a lot of times when you're a vet and you've had your shot, you've been around the block, and it's not working out.
I am who I am, and I ain't going to change for yous.
Better way of putting it than what I said. There you go. All right, on to the CeeDee Lamb deal that finally got done. We said it would.
Let's go.
This one always had to. 4 years, $136 million, a $38 million signing bonus, and $100 million guaranteed over the course of that deal.
Nice. Well done.
Had to happen. Had to happen. It was just like yes. And they didn't have to beat out Justin Jefferson's $35 million a year number. So to me, it's surprising that this one didn't get done sooner because of where the number ended up. I wonder what the Cowboys were trying to play hardball with. I thought lasting this long, CeeDee wanted more than Justin Jefferson, but obviously that number.
He just wanted security. He wanted to feel like he was in the right spot, and he's played himself into this position to get this deal done. And for Dallas, it was a no-brainer. I know somebody who's very happy. Dak Prescott can sleep a little bit better now knowing that his guy's been taken care of.
And this isn't like the Zeke deal that you have to worry about the drop-off in performance. You know, he's a fifth-year wide receiver.
He's in stride right now.
He's in his prime. This is it for him. 4 years is his entire prime of his career. Wide receivers don't fall off via injury. I can't remember the last one who really just got it zapped right at that very moment where he's hitting the big time. It's not a position where you lose it that quickly, in my eyes.
The last no-brainer signing I can remember in Dallas was way back when Tyron Smith signed for 10 years, like $100 million.
Those contracts
that deal would be so cheap. He'd be like, give me Tyron for $100 million. So kudos to Dallas for getting this done. It's a no-brainer. Now we can move on to making fun of Dallas in the regular season.
Well, now we can move on to the Dak deal, which is still not done. Could be a free agent after this year. We move on to the Micah Parsons deal, which is still not done. He won't be a free agent.
A lot of fake aggregate accounts saying Micah Parsons being traded to the Bears, and I had to like go rub my eyes in the mirror, check my phone again, and realize that it was a fake account. But
I love the people who just are Bears fans tweeting out breaking Bears news.
Caleb Williams retweeted it. He was essentially like, we'll make some room in my house for Micah.
But that one got done, and now we have Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk still TBD. Trent Williams still TBD, so a lot of news still left to break. We're still left to.
Trent says he ain't coming.
So we'll see. Some notables from this past week. Ernest Jones, the Rams linebacker, who reportedly requested a trade. Then the team said he didn't actually request a trade, but was open to a trade.
Breakdown of communication.
He did get traded to the Tennessee Titans for a pick swap. 2026 6th-round pick for a Titans 2026 5th-round pick. Wildly low price tag for a guy. Yes, he only has 1 year left on his rookie contract, but this guy was a thumper last year. Kind of a tone setter on that second level of the defense. Great blitzer.
Got a C on his chest,
pressures.
bro. That's a captain.
Captain of that defense, and a great replacement for Azeez Al-Shaair, who they lost in free agency this past offseason for the Tennessee Titans. So a real no-brainer from their perspective. But this only affirms my previous suspicions that don't draft linebackers high. These guys are easy to get now, acquire via trade, via free agency. The price tag on a lot of quality linebackers is very low. And a lot of times the guys you're drafting first, second, third round, early on in their careers, you just go through the list, whether it's Jack Campbell last year, whether it was Quay Walker a few years ago, whether it's Devin Lloyd, who had struggles out the gate. It's a tough position to transition to the NFL, and they are the quarterback of the defense. They need those reps. So if I'm building an NFL team, I'm signing and trading for vets nowadays at the linebacker position.
You're saying it's a real gamble to take a shot on these high-round linebackers.
Yes.
And really, the great determinator of skill is just time. You have to find out if these guys can play in the league, catch them in their second deal, maybe as a free agent after a few years. I read that tweet on my way over here. It was a really smart tweet and a really smart observation. And I thought about some of the guys that were drafted highly in Chicago that were linebackers. John Bostic, who was, a decent player and played a long time in the league, but he was never played up to where he was drafted. I think about Kasim Green from Rutgers, who I think was a second-round pick or a third-round pick as well. The only linebacker I can think of, a high-round pick that was a real solid player and still is Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
So there's some credence to what you're saying.
Yeah. So the past handful of years here, 2023, top 75 picks at linebacker. We had Jack Campbell. We had Drew Sanders. Neither guy has really made much of an impact just yet. Year before 2022, we had Quay Walker, Devin Lloyd, Troy Anderson, Brian Asamoah, Chad Muma, Christian Harris. A lot of men. Devin Lloyd came on strong last year, but a lot of those guys not doing too much. The year before that, 2021, Zaven Collins, Jamin Davis, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Nick Bolton, Pete Werner. Those are your top 75 picks the last 4 years. A lot of misses, and the hits, you probably have one or two that were like actually
Nick
providing
Bolton.
above average that are even better than guys like Ernest Green, who, again, you can just get for a 5th, 6th pick swap. So it's a position that's been devalued, and it's just difficult to come in the NFL right away and make an impact.
GM Mike.
It's one I'm avoiding. It's one I'm avoiding early on in drafts if I can help it, and prioritizing some other positions there. All right, last trade news from this past week. Malik Willis,
Yep.
former 3rd rounder of the Tennessee Titans, obviously didn't work out there when he did get his run as a rookie. Those stats from that season. Traded to the Packers for only a 7th rounder.
Yeah, I love this for the Packers, for Malik Willis. I think seriously, you've got a guy, Matt LaFleur, who is criminally disrespected when you talk about the top minds offensively in this league. And when you get a guy like Malik Willis, he is a ball of clay, and you need an artist to come in there and take it down to a fine piece of art. And Matt LaFleur, having Jordan Love there, he has the comfort of knowing that he has a true number 1 guy, and really, honest to goodness, time to develop this guy, Malik Willis, because if, God forbid, something were to happen to Jordan Love, we saw in the preseason, the step down from 1 to 2 was not very pretty in Green Bay. So you're going to have an opportunity to have Malik Willis groomed under Matt LaFleur's offense and being right there behind Jordan Love. I think it's great. It works out well, and he knows he's not going to get his hay early in terms of coin, but there's going to come a time where he may have a chance to earn himself some dough in this league.
Yeah, I think a shrewd move by the Packers as well. Not only because he's a massive upgrade from Sean Clifford, but because you kind of lost the developmental years that everyone knew. When Malik Willis is coming out of Liberty, everyone's like, he is a developmental project. The 2 years of project that we saw, and obviously the stats you saw on the screen there that were terrible when he was thrown into the Wolves, were the years that everyone knew you were going to have to kind of suffer through with him. And now obviously they're trading him because of, they're not trading him for a 7th because he made the leap, right? He obviously looked poorly for them this preseason throughout training camp, or else they're not getting just a 7th rounder in return for him. It wasn't going to be their backup. But with the Packers and how they've developed quarterbacks over the course of the past 20 plus years, which has been the same sort of GM front office regime that's been there, it's worth a shot.
I could see him having a real cult following in Green Bay. They are wacky in a great way about their football in Green Bay, and they're even wackier about their quarterbacks. And I have to think that with them having their guy in Jordan Love, they're really going to take to this guy, Malik Willis, and protect him. They're going to try to nurture this young quarterback back to health, like finding a bird on your porch that can't really fly. That's Malik Willis right now. And they have some falconers in that building. So we're going to see him take to the skies, as it were.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Get to the Packers in a little bit here, maybe early on in our NFC drafting and previewing after this.
American Service Academies kick off their seasons right here on CBS Sports Network.
All right, some brief injury news prior to these burning questions, just to recap this week and all that went down with the cuts to 53. We had Dre Greenlaw, 49ers linebacker, had that Achilles in Super Bowl. He's starting on the PUP list. TJ Hawkinson, for I believe is an ACL tear, he's starting on the PUP. Odell Beckham, Nick Chubb.
I'm still pissed about the TJ Hawkinson play, but go on.
Keaton Mitchell, Tyler Higbee, all PUP. AJ Dillon, Packers backup running back. He's on IR. He's out for the season. Darius Robinson, first rounder of the Arizona Cardinals defensive lineman, going to miss the first 4 games with a calf. And Jonathan Brooks, Panthers second rounder, after tearing his ACL last year. Everyone knew this was going to be the case. He'll miss at least the first 4 games. Why are you mad about TJ Hawkinson?
I hate seeing all these tight ends get hit from these guys coming downhill. It's like there's certain things I can't do as an offensive lineman. If I'm on a pin pull and I get outside of the tackle, if a tackle blocks down and I run outside, I can't come back down and hit people when they're not looking. That's just physics. It's not allowed. And when you get these guys taking shots to the knee, I know it's like, where else can we hit him? We can't hit him in the head. This is a conversation for another day.
We can have it right now because they eliminated the pulling to the edge, going low on
I hold the safety of our players near and dear to my heart. And I do think that there's a way to play this game violently, physically, that God intended football to be played without injuring one another. And that's my piece right there.
No, I do think, especially over the middle of the field, and I saw like a handful of times this preseason, the strike zone is the knees now.
It's
with these safeties coming at the seams.
That's what the defenders say.
And it's just because they're going to lose. If you don't, you're going to lose $40,000 to $50,000 a year via fines, because anytime you come up around the shoulder pads at all, and even not even shoulder pads, if a guy is going to the ground and you happen to make contact with his helmet, it's a flag, it's $15K out of your bank account, and it's just not worth it when a tackle right at the knees works.
The first thing I would do as a secondary player is get one of those guardian caps, because I'd be in the good graces of the officials and, the court of public opinion. This guy doesn't want to hurt people. He doesn't want to hurt himself. So maybe that'll help these guys if they're trying to hit around the shoulder area without getting penalized.
All right, on to the NFC here, where we're going to go through back and forth, pick who we think are going to have the best record, top to bottom in the NFC, and give you guys our burning question going into the season for each of them. You start with the AFC, so I'll take NFC here. And as much as this pains me to do it, it is top to bottom the most complete roster in the NFC right now. And it is the Detroit Lions with my top pick. Went 12-5 a year ago. Only the 12th most difficult schedule in the NFL this season. Not too hard for them. Projected for 10.5 wins. Vegas isn't buying in as much as I am, and that's at -110. So the people aren't buying in either. I don't know. They lost a few people. They lost probably the biggest one, in my opinion, is going to be Jonah Jackson along that offensive line. Difficult to replace. Pro Bowl caliber guard there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson they lost, but he was obviously injured most of last year. Josh Reynolds, probably their number 2 wide receiver they lost, but Jameson Williams looked great this preseason. But then they added a ton to the secondary, to this defensive line, whether it was Carlton Davis via trade from Tampa Bay, Terrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw, first and second round picks for them, Marcus Davenport, DJ Reader, 2 guys coming off of injuries, low risk, high reward sort of plays in free agency. And then Kevin Zeitler, the ageless one at guard to replace Jonah Jackson, not necessarily because he's going to play on the right side, but my only burning question is, which Jared Goff do we get? Post Super Bowl Jared Goff, post hype when they made it, he was terrible back, 2019 for the Los Angeles Rams, had a really down year. Do we see Goff maybe a little bit more rattled if their offensive line takes a step back, losing a guy like Jonah Jackson?
Will he be able to continue to feel comfortable back there and feel like he's part of an electric offense? I mean, my question about them is, can Dan Campbell put his hubris away for 5 minutes? Can this team figure out a way to close games? I think it was a 17-point, 3-possession lead in the NFC Championship.
Bring it up.
That's brutal, man. That is so brutal to me. And I've got questions about both the teams involved in that game. But for the Lions, there's no question they're at or near the very top of this NFC list. So now I get to go. I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, a lot has been talked about with the Niners the last few weeks. The way that the team that was on the field in the preseason looked, led by Brock Purdy, the question surrounding Trent Williams at the left tackle position, in my opinion, the best in football, a guy that can start any play the right way, any number of different plays, play styles, play schemes. Kyle Shanahan can use him any number of different ways. But for me, that's the MVP of the team, the left tackle. If he's not on the field, this team doesn't look the same. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is a guy that always finds a way to get open. And when things go awry for Brock Purdy, he tends to find him. The burning question I have about the San Francisco 49ers is, how long will it take this offense to gel, being that none of them were on the field together during the preseason? And if that's the case, is Kyle Shanahan going to say, that doesn't matter, we can hand the ball to CMC, he's going to get 4.5 to 5.5 a pop, and we're going to keep that going until everybody starts to gel again? Well, then the burning question becomes, how effing long are they going to just give it to CMC? Is his body going to hold up for the entirety of the season? Because we remember the historic year he had last year, right, Mike? And I can't remember the numbers, but every week you look up and say, CMC did what? Is he going to be healthy enough next week to go? Because I know how it feels to play in the NFL. And when you get the ball that much and when you're taking those many hits, things don't turn out too well. So my burning question for the number 2 in the NFC team is, how long will it take for this offense to gel? And is CMC going to last when they're figuring that question out?
Yeah, that one. I mean, so Trent, CMC, Ayuk haven't been on a practice field yet. You know, they obviously the first 2 being held out with their contract situations, but then CMC with a calf injury has not practiced. So week 1, if all those guys do end up playing, it's going to be the first time they're all together. So that obviously is my burning question as well. 49ers right now are predicted by Vegas to have the most wins. 11.5 is their total, but people aren't buying it. They are at plus 125 to the over right now. So a lot of people betting under wins for them because they did lose a little, especially along this defensive line where Eric Armstead left to go to the Jags, Javon Kinlaw to the Jets, Chase Young, who they had down the stretch briefly, obviously goes to the Saints. They add Leonard Floyd.
I remember the Chase Young era in San Francisco. That was fun.
the
effort tape.
Everyone thought.
The effort tape.
Oh, dude, he played like a guy who was not in a contract yet. Let's just say. But he was, unfortunately. Dominic Puny, though, a big addition to that offensive line. His start at right guard. Ricky Pearsall, if Ayuk does hold out into the season, probably going to be his replacement there.
But he's got some issues physically, too.
He's been banged up.
We're going to see how this thing looks. We're going to see Kyle Shanahan's genius on full display.
And Leonard Floyd, who they signed to replace some of those D-line injuries, he's been banged up this preseason, so I can see why a lot of people are betting against that 11.5 number.
That's a sharp observation by the people saying to, hammer the under or whatever, because you go to the Super Bowl as the Niners, you lose the Super Bowl, and the way they lost the Super Bowl, that's a short offseason, dude, from a mental standpoint and from a physical standpoint. So I think it would be a testament to how great this Niners roster really is if they can find a way back, but it's tough sledding to get back there.
All right, my pick. You know where I'm going. Green Bay Packers.
Boom!
9-8 last year, projected for 10.5 wins. People not buying, though. That's at plus 130 right now to go over that. I'm taking the over on that, if you can't tell, because I don't think they lost a ton. They obviously, David Bakhtiari retired. He wasn't playing, though. Devondre Campbell leaves. He wasn't doing too well himself by the end of his run there in Green Bay. Aaron Jones gone. I think that is going to be the one that's going to hurt the most, in my opinion, if I had to bet on anyone. John Runyon, their guard, Darnell Savage, their safety, also out the door. But they bring in Xavier McKinney, who's a massive upgrade. Josh Jacobs, who much more of a 3-down back, likely to stay healthier than Aaron Jones was over the course of his career. And then they also have a few starters penciled in from this draft. Jordan Morgan at guard, their first rounder. Adrian Cooper, linebacker, second rounder. And Javon Bullard, safety, second rounder as well. So my only question, is Jeff Hafley, new DC for the Green Bay Packers, is he actually going to be a big upgrade over Joe Barry? Hard to be a downgrade. I think Packers fans will tell you that. But is it a transformative upgrade that really takes you to, I mean, shoot, I have them third in the NFC. Like, is it that big of an upgrade? Because offensively, that's where they belong, right?
It's like
they were
Waldron, would you say?
Like who?
Like in terms of the upgrades at these coordinator spots, around the league. I think about
like Getsy to Waldron. Okay.
So you're saying Green Bay has been complaining about this?
Oh yeah,
Joe Barry
about their
DC
forever ever since. Gosh, it was
because I watch
NFC
players. You're thinking about
game.
schemes and coaching. Like I watch it and I'm looking at asses and elbows. I think those are the only people involved in the whole operation. But you make it a bigger scope.
They're going from what was very much an off zone, too high, keep everything in front of you, bend don't break, to a more aggressive Hafley, cover 3, cover 1, single high stuff, going to blitz a little more. Like that
bend don't break style is really, really stressful as a fan and as an offensive player because you never know when you're going to be back on the field. Vic Fangio ran that defense, and it was
where it's just the drives, 15-play drive, 15-play drive, and
capped off by a turnover in the low red. It's like the most stressful style. I like the Packers too. I hate to say this, Jordan Love has been masterful in his overtaking of that quarterback 1 spot in Green Bay, as we've talked about a few times on this show. It's hallowed ground when you're back there in the huddle in Green Bay and you're wearing that G on your helmet. It's a really special thing, and it's akin to playing, linebacker in Chicago or quarterback in New England. When you're the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, there's a certain way you got to do things. Jordan Love's done a great job. I really like the development of this young receiver room. The burning question I have is, are they going to continue to make strides offensively, particularly in that receiver room, so that he can really pick apart defenses the way he wants to with his arm talent? And I like their guy Musgrave a lot over the middle. He's going to be a great addition to this offense in a more reliable role. His reps weren't as high last year due to injury. And also, I just really think that the fans are ready for a run in Green Bay.
I think that's a good point about this receiving core because everyone kind of thinks, first half they were legitimately bad. I don't think there's any debating that. Second half, obviously, was better, but a lot of these guys' inconsistencies kind of been their calling card, whether it was Christian Watson, whether it's Romeo Doubs, whether it's Dontavion Wicks. Those guys have had issues with drops, issues at the catch point that, we saw in the first half, didn't see as much in the second half, and everyone just thinks, the second half is what we're going to see the rest of their careers because they're young. That's not always necessarily the case. Sometimes inconsistent guys are just inconsistent by nature. So we'll see. Should that be the case?
I was pretty inconsistent. So my next pick is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, okay? The birds. My burning question, does Saquon have another monster year in him? We know about the skill positions. We know the monstars that they have accumulated. And the closest thing I've seen to that was my rookie year. It was Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett, Matt Forte, Jay Cutler. These are ballers. That's the huddle that they have in Philadelphia with their guys. So we've seen it from Jalen Hurts before where he's been the guy. We've also seen it where he's done some things that make you scratch your head. The luxury of having a guy like Saquon Barkley is on those cloudy days for Jalen Hurts, you can really rely on Saquon Barkley. But my question always goes back to the health of this running back. We know how the climate is in the NFL for these long seasons for a running back, especially the offense shouldered on one guy. But luckily for him, Philadelphia has all the talent. I really want to know if the head guy is the right guy in Philly. I think they have the right guys at offensive line. They've got the pieces at the receiver position. It's that defensive turnover. It's the aging group, and it's some of the young guys that are filling in. It's definitely a blend of vets and youngsters out there. Mike, what do you see from the defense that makes me maybe feel better about the Eagles' defensive unit?
Well, I think what makes me feel better is that they weren't good last year.
Yeah.
So any turnover, probably a good thing. Hard to see this defense really taking a step backwards from what they were last year, because flat out they weren't good last year. And they add C.J. Gardner-Johnson at safety to this unit. They had Zach Bond as an off-ball linebacker, Devin White as an off-ball linebacker, Bryce Huff as a pass rusher to basically replace Hassan Reddick, who they lost. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, their first and second rounders respectively. And then, Saquon Barkley on the offensive side of the ball. But they did lose two franchise legends, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, DeAndre Swift, Hassan Reddick as well. Not quite as big of losses, but still losses. My burning question is the tush push, was it Kelce? Was it the rest of the line?
It was
Kelce.
it
how they draw it up, or was it Hurts?
It's still in the playbook. But some of you guys are at home. I'm about to get my fat butt out of the chair. So Jason Kelce is about this low off the ground at the snap. The other guy's gonna be right here. Okay, that's a difference of about 6 inches. 6 inches. You can ask a lot of people. 6 inches, that's a big disparity, okay? So for Jason Kelce, being able to get under there and drive that crowbar under the door at these short yardage situations was a real X-Men ability by him. I don't know if they're going to have that luxury. I think that we're going to see more of a mash-it-up duo style, perhaps, in these short yardage situations. Let Saquon dictate where he's going to go based on what he sees from the front seven. We've seen it in Dallas for many years, the duo style. Power with no pullers. That's what duo is. It's double teams across the board. Asses just trying to put masses on other asses. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they're going to do. It's going to be no trickeration. They're going to get up and they're going to run the ball because Lane Johnson can widen the front side. Jordan Mailata can go deuce on the backside. And they're going to have no issue there.
Yeah, I think in the pure running game, I'm not super worried about losing Jason Kelce, but it's hard to overstate how much a weapon like that tush push was, because say it's 3rd and 2, you're converting.
Yep.
You run it twice, you're converting. You just have that confidence, and they ran it more than anyone else in the NFL, and it just truly was unstoppable. And when you get in those situations, those are ones that your run-of-the-mill average team is converting 50, 60% of the time. When you have that to make it 100% of the time, it just is.
So we got Pete's Takes is coming into the chat. Thank you for being here, Pete's Takes. Vic Fangio and Saquon Barkley will be the difference maker this year for the Eagles. You know what? I love Vic Fangio. I think that there's a confidence he can instill in a defensive group, particularly a young group that's looking to find an identity for themselves. Like the Philadelphia Eagles, they're looking to reinvent themselves defensively. They want to match the production of that offense. Vic Fangio plays no games, okay? He's old school gangster about it, and the dudes buy into his persona. Half of being a coach in the NFL is having a real personality, and people can smell this stuff on you. They love Vic Fangio, okay, because he's a real dude, and I've experienced it. I think he is a big part of this thing, Pete.
Yeah, I picked the Cowboys prior to the Jahan Dotson trade. I'm flipping that. I think the Eagles will win.
Great.
We'll get to picks a little bit later, though. All right. My next one is going to be the other team in the NFC East here, Dallas Cowboys. Team that won the East actually last year, went 12-5, 11th hardest schedule in the NFL, projected for 10.5 wins. I don't know if I go over on that, but I do still think this is a playoff team. But they did have some key losses. Tyron Smith, Tyler Biadasz, starting left tackle, starting center, respectively, replacing them with rookies in Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe, first and third rounders, respectively. Dorrance Armstrong out the door to Washington. one of their rotational pass rushers, getting replaced by Marshawn Nealon. Their draft and free agency really lined up in terms of who they lost and where they went early on in the draft.
They covered their butt pretty well.
They covered their bases for sure. So, yeah, those are probably, anytime you're replacing proven vets with rookies, you're looking at downgrades. My burning question has to be Dak Prescott with no Tyron. He's a different animal, and you saw it the last 3 years. Tyron, 21 and 23, 2021, 2023, fully healthy, pass checking at an elite level, 2 best seasons of Dak Prescott's career. 2022, Tyron hurt, banged up. When he is on the field, not playing well whatsoever. Dak's maybe worst season of his past handful of years, 23 touchdowns, 15 picks in only 12 games, 2,860 yards, and a 91.1 passer rating. Passer rating the other 2 years, 105.9 and 104.2. That's a lot to ask Tyler Guyton to completely replace what we saw from Tyron Smith. I just don't think this offense is the same. Because of how much it relies on that drop back game and how good Dak is in that regard. But he's good because he had time to be good. And I'm not sure he does without Tyron.
One thing I know about quarterbacks, they remember interceptions they threw, they remember touchdowns they threw, they remember the big hits that they were given by defensive linemen, and they remember who their favorite protectors were. And I remember when I was a young player in Chicago, Jay Cutler used to always tell me about a mute button that he had in Denver.
Were you Jay's favorite?
By the name of Ryan Clady. I think I was the only guy that he talked to. They had a guy named Ryan Clady, who you know very well, very good left tackle, great left tackle. And Jay played with him during a time when there was no play where Ryan wasn't dominating the guy across from him. And they take extreme comfort in that. It allows them to be the ballers that they are at quarterback. And for Dak Prescott, he had a baller like that, maybe even better, in Tyron Smith for the entirety of his career. And the games where he wasn't out there, he didn't play well. But the Tyler Guyton thing, the Cooper Beebe thing, these are 2 rookies that have been drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. And in my opinion, when 2 rookies come in together, it's like they're not rookies at all because they have to face the fire together. They're not pretending to be okay with what's going on. They can talk and say, hey, I had trouble with this. I had trouble with this. I had trouble with this. Where did you feel strongly? Okay, let's work together. Next thing you know, you got 2 guys that are playing like year 3 guys. We could be seeing stars in the making in Dallas. No pun intended. I think that these 2 draft picks are really good, and I think Dak will be just fine. It won't be the same as Tyron. They will find a way to scheme up some of these one-on-one blocks that Tyron used to get. Maybe they'll get a chip on the way out for Tyler Guyton.
And they do still have that mute button at right guard in Zach Martin. Maybe the best guard tandem in the NFL now with Tyler Smith and what he looked like.
I'm so jealous of Zach Martin's career.
It's about as good as it gets. I mean, it's a Hall of Fame career. So, yeah, it's easy to be jealous of that. All right, who's your next pick?
My next pick are the Atlanta Falcons. Ooh. Okay, I was a big fan of movies like 10 Things I Hate About You, rom-coms, these 90s Seattle filmed movies, okay, where there's a girl who's into the arts, who's in a ponytail and overalls, and she's got paint stained on her overalls and doesn't quite have it all figured out when it comes to being the cool kid. But, she's got some stuff figured out. Am I right? So the Atlanta Falcons are that artsy gal with some potential. And some really great bones, you know what I'm saying, in Atlanta. Some real stuff to work with. Yeah. Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. I like what's going on down there. Kirk Cousins is like when they take the glasses off of her, let her hair down, maybe give her a blowout. Next thing you know, Cindy Crawford's walking in next scene. It's the same girl from the art class, the ceramics major, okay? That's the Atlanta Falcons, but it's the inverse. We're going to put the glasses on Atlanta. We're going to take Kirk Cousins, nerd, vanilla thing, and we're going to just throw the glasses on. Next thing you know, boom. It's like Sydney Sweeney happened in Atlanta, and the fans are saying, why weren't we introduced to these skill players last year? Why weren't they utilized? Because they didn't have Kirk Cousins, okay? There's a reason Desmond Ridder is bringing somebody their breakfast burrito from Taco Bell this morning. It's because the Atlanta Falcons weren't good enough at quarterback, and now they are, and that's why I have them so high on my list. We saw this team, even with the semblance of offense that they had, get down into the red area a number of times last year and slam their head on the door without getting through the doorway, right? You need a great quarterback to finish, particularly in the red area. The field gets smaller, shrunk, the plays get, we kind of know what we're running. The defense knows what we're running. We know what they're running. It's execution at that point. That's where a guy like Kirk Cousins comes in. That's why I've got the Falcons here. My only burning question is this. Is Kirk Cousins going to be healthy enough for the entirety of the season? The guy's an old dude coming off a lower extremity injury, major recovery operation, playing in a turf field, right? Playing in a turf field in Atlanta.
Yep.
These are some things that concern me a little bit. Now, granted, you've got a running back you can throw the ball to if things go haywire in the pocket. You've got a tight end who, by the grace of God, will be the guy who we all thought he was, because we want to watch Kyle Pitts go absolutely ham in that division and every Sunday. But it's going to be because of Kirk Cousins. So that's what I have next. My burning question is, can he stay healthy?
That was a lot to take in, and I loved it, all of it. And I agreed with all of it.
Art Major, babe.
This team, you're not the only one buying into this team. They right now, 9.5 wins Vegas hasn't projected at, but it's really, really, really juiced to the over. -140 right now. A lot of people buying in to their over because easiest schedule in the NFL, at least on paper, based off of Vegas win total projections as it stands right now. And they added, like you mentioned, Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore at wide receiver, Matthew Judon via trade at defensive end, Justin Simmons at safety, and really
They're all
didn't lose
in.
much.
They're all
really
in.
Didn't lose much. My only question is Zach Robinson, former PFFer, my buddy, is he a chip off the McVay block like KOC was? Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Is he, and like whether it's the McVay Shanahan tree, there's not been a lot of duds out of that tree, right? Like the
Even
guys,
if he just got nicked by the branch.
the guys like Zach Taylor, even the guys who have come from them, they at least run modern offenses. They at least do the things in terms of motion, in terms of bunch sets, in terms of play action, like all the easy wins that you can take as an OC. They at least put those into play. But is he going to be the next in line? Is he going to be like Kevin O'Connell? Like, is he that caliber? Because if he is, there's really no reason this team should not boat race the NFC South.
Boat race.
Boat race.
I love that phrase.
It's a good phrase.
Are boat races historically like lopsided?
That's a good
Like
question.
there's one boat that's just out ahead of everybody?
It must be.
That guy didn't even have a motor.
All right, we'll get to
Okay.
the next tier of teams in the NFL. Falcons won. We'll get to some more. I'm back up on the clock right after this.
Yep, they're wrapping up the summer. And now we're looking forward to kicking it with superstars. Now that's CBS Sports Sunday. We'll see you on September 8th.
And I'm going with a team I'm actually picking to win this division here. Seattle Seahawks. Only projected to have 7.5 wins after they won 9 a year ago, which is surprising to me because I'm going to get through what they added and what they lost. And I think we added a little bit more, especially from the coaching staff, but we'll get to that too. But 7.5 wins is all they're projected to have. They only lost really Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, linebacker core from a year ago. Yeah, only it's a whole position group to replace. But they add Jerome Baker to this linebacking core. They added Nick Harris. They added Laken Tomlinson to the offensive line. Oh, I guess they added lost Damian Lewis as well. So they lost him on the offensive line, but they added Christian Haynes, guard, to replace as well. He likely to see time given the injuries that they've had up front. And Byron Murphy, impact defensive lineman. So I think the arrow's pointed up because I think this coaching staff is a massive upgrade from what they have in terms of Mike McDonald, now your head coach, defense coordinator as well, and Ryan Grubb, new offense coordinator who was the offense coordinator at Washington the past 2 years, who had some record-setting offenses there. My only question is this the most inexperienced coaching staff in the NFL? Like, they are. Mike McDonald only spent 2 years as a DC in the NFL to this point. Ryan Grubb's only 2 years as a Power 5 OC, never coached in the NFL before, never coached at that level in college prior to that. Are they ready for the big time? Because it's a big step up being now Mike McDonald, the head coach, Ryan Grubb going from Power 5 to the NFL. Are they ready? Because from what I've seen from them, if they are, this team's pretty stacked at a lot of different positions, whether it's now their defensive line, whether it's their secondary, whether it's their receiving core that everyone knows.
I love that.
Now, obviously, O-line needs to get better. It needs to get healthier, but they got a lot to work with at this point.
Yeah, and also, if you're a young coach, what's one thing that you would love to have is true home field advantage. And when you go to Seattle to play, if you've ever been to that stadium, you can say beyond the shadow of a doubt that is what home field advantage is supposed to be like. It's a tough place to play offensive line in as an opposing team. And, yeah, for them, I love their skill positions. You talked about it. I think They've got a quarterback who can make hay with these guys, and he can turn some of these dudes into bigger dudes in the league. JSN being the top of that
DK's
list
already a
for
pretty
me.
big dude.
I think about a third chair in that receiver room. It's JSN.
Yep.
And that guy would be a 2 on anywhere else and borderline 1 in some places. So I really like Seattle. That's a good pick. But for me, I got to go NFC West. I'm going to take it down the coast a little bit. We're going to go to Los Angeles, La La Land, okay? The land of McVays and Staffords. And everybody loves the offense, the no-look passes, the Puka Nacua star trajectory from rookie year on. But for me, the reason that this team has had such a storied success in the last few years is their defense, and it's led by Aaron Donald, but he's no longer there. And they found a way to go and get 2 guys in the draft. And I'm going to ask you to give me a little bit of the profile on these dudes, because on paper, the things that I'm reading and what I've seen early and heard from guys in LA is that these 2 guys are a really good combination in their defensive tackle for the Los Angeles Rams. Forgive me, the St. Louis Rams. That's my burning question. Are the Rams going to be able to keep pace, pick up the dribble where Aaron Donald left off? And obviously a few pieces from the Rams going out the door this offseason, but McVay and the people in management in Los Angeles have done a great job bringing people in. So tell me that I didn't just throw a dart at the board and make a wrong choice here.
I will say, no, there's just no replacing Aaron Donald.
Yep.
Right? That's the biggest thing. That's my biggest worry with this Rams team is they kind of got by on the fact that they knew week in and week out, they were getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks as long as Aaron Donald was in the lineup. It didn't matter who else was in there. He was a one-man defense in that regard. And now you don't have that. And you are relying on 2 rookies in Jared Verse, who, 2 rookies who I think are NFL ready. Obviously, both coming from that Florida State offensive line, both on the older side. Versus a 5th year coming out, Fiske a 6th year coming out, their 2nd round defensive tackle. Both highly athletic, explosive off the line. They can get into backfields. But you're still relying on rookies to generate that pressure, and guys you just drafted last year, and Kobe Turner and Byron Young. So it's a young group, no pun intended.
They've had some experience. I mean, some of these guys, I think about Kobe Turner. Kobe Turner had a great year last year.
Yes, he did.
So they've learned how to be successful. Now it's time for Kobe to show these guys how to be successful and pick up the traits, the habits that they learned from AD, which I know his traits are off the chart and his habits are off the chart. So hopefully it can carry over this defense.
But they did add a lot, especially to the secondary. Obviously, you have not only Aaron Donald gone, but now Ernest Jones, your linebacker, gone. But they added Cam Curl at safety, Tre'Davious White, Darius Williams at corner. All 3 of those guys will be starting for them. So a completely revamped secondary, along with that now reloaded defensive line. And oh, by the way, they had Jonah Jackson at guard. I think if they're winning games, if they're proving you right here, obviously they won 10 a year ago, it's because this offense is tough to stop. I mean, they have a lot of weapons, whether it's Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, who obviously is going to start in the pup, but they have this offensive line now, looks like the best O-line since Super Bowl year for the Rams, when you go across with that interior of Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila, Kevin Dotson. What was it? Saffold, Whitworth, Havenstein, who's
8 feet tall, 450 pounds.
So,
at least on film. I got a 4K TV, Rob. I'm sorry. You look massive on TV. Okay. And they put you in the foreground a lot, which is, maybe talk to the camera people.
But it's probably the best offensive line since then. So that's, if there's anything to hang your hat on this Rams team exceeding their 8.5 win total projection, it's that they can put points on the board.
And it's just the Matt Stafford effect. Any team that Matt Stafford's on, I'm going to give them the over in wins for whatever it is they're set out to do. Puka will not have the same numbers as last year, but he will be spectacular. I think there's going to be a lot of coverages that are dictated upon where Puka is lined up, okay? I just think that's the nature of the beast. You got a 2-headed monster there, and it's no secret that Puka is now a guy that can go off any single game. So we're going to have to bracket him, cloud him, do all the jargon words to get Puka Nacua covered up, okay?
All right, my next pick, Tampa Bay Bucks. 9-win team last year. NFC South champs. Projected for 8.5. A lot of people not buying that. It's plus 125 for the over there. So if you like them, you can get in on that.
Evans, another 1,000-yard year?
Yes, always. It's clockwork.
Yeah, but I mean, it's another year. It's time. Father time.
What is he now, 30? He's not that old because he came out super young.
Because I was 24, he was 20.
Okay, he's 31. Just turned 31.
Yep.
So not bad. I think he has one more, and then maybe that might be it. Obviously, lose Dave Canales, your offensive coordinator there. Lost a lot on defense, every single level. Shaq Barrett, Carlton Davis, Devin White, a lot of those guys, though, weren't playing. They weren't playing like they were in the Super Bowl, let's just say, this past year. So not massive losses. You add Bryce Hall to the secondary, Jordan Whitehead to the secondary, Graham Barton to this offensive line. I think this offensive line is going to be very good. Like, I think this is prime for Baker Mayfield to have even more success than he had a year ago. But just, I think this defense is a far, far cry from the unit, again, that we saw win the Super Bowl. And that's my burning question, is how do they backfill those losses? Where does this plus play come from? Because Levante David's getting old in the tooth. Vita Vea has just struggled to stay healthy and stay productive at, 360 pounds, just the way of the world when you're a nose tackle. Logan Hall hasn't shown a ton as that second-round pick they had a year ago. Kalijah Kancey, I think, is your guy that if you think this defense can take a step forward, it's him. And obviously Antoine Winfield Jr. is consummate all-pro type of safety on the back end. So you have dudes still on this defense, but I just think there's some holes that I worry about. Zion McCollum as your other starting cornerback that I don't know.
You talked about,
I'm worried.
You were asking what it's going to be that's, going to change. How are they going to get better? You talked about the offensive line, dude. This team historically does not run the football well, okay? Mm-hmm. They do not run the football well. And, they may get 4 yards on the carry, but if you watch the film with an O-line coach, you say, he's on the wrong guy, that's the wrong technique. With a center like Graham Barton, with a rookie, an ass kicker like that, you get an opportunity to come into that room and establish yourself as the alpha from day one. And even the tackles will take note. Even your all-pro tackle will say, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. I'm going to hear what Graham has to say. And then the wave just starts to build. It builds, it builds. And by the time you reach that coast on the other side of the ocean, which is week one, you will have an offensive line led by a rookie with studs in certain spots. And you're going to like the way your team goes. And I think it happens in the running game with Tampa Bay. They're obviously going to throw the ball, but they will run the football more effectively this year.
Well, that was my second burning question. If I had to pick two, the second one was going to be O-line. I have no questions about, but Rachaad White, vision at that position has been suspect, I think is a fair word to describe it. So does Bucky Irvin get more run, their fourth rounder? Who gets the touches at running back? Because I think they're built to run the football for the first time in a few years. But do they have the running back room to do so?
All right, so you went with those guys down south.
I teed you up here.
And I'm going with this team up in the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay, these are the Bears. Okay, the Bears. And I put them somewhere in the middle of this list because I didn't want to glaze them. I didn't want to raise them, put them at the bottom. So I put them right here. And in all caps, in parentheses, before this blurb I wrote, I said, can the offensive line stay healthy? There are dudes on this football team that I love the way that they play, particularly up front. One of which, and this is just an example, is a guy by the name of Tevin Jenkins, who I'm sure you scouted and I'm sure you love like I do. And when he is on the field, he is like Wreck-It Ralph, bro. He is everywhere. He's pushing guys over piles. He's throwing linebackers outside the numbers. He's finishing to the sidelines. But then you watch 2 games and there's no Tevin Jenkins. And then you watch a couple series and there's no Tevin Jenkins. And then the offense kind of, dwindles. When he's on the field, when you have your group on the field with Tevin Jenkins in it, your group plays with an edge. And I think this group needs to find a way to play with an edge. They also need to find a way to play healthy and stay healthy. Nate Davis has been a guy that hasn't been on the field at all for him. And when he has, he's been a real liability for this football team. He doesn't practice. And when he plays, he doesn't play very well. With the Bears' new look offense featuring some really high-profile dudes, the town has been at a fever pitch. This is what I wrote last night in front of my blue light laptop. They never considered any of their quarterbacks to be elite. It remains to be seen whether their rookie quarterback is, but the things he has shown them have made it a very promising situation. My burning question revolves around the health of the offensive line. It's a unit that doesn't have a true S-tier player on it yet, and we love Darnell Wright. But it's had a handful of guys looking to prove themselves. For example, Tevin Jenkins, we talked about it. But without proper depth and star power, the unit will need to lean on dependability above all. Rookie quarterbacks will make mistakes, Mike. Caleb is not going to be the Heisman winner every single week.
He's going to make a mistake?
Just have to make sure he lives to see the next one.
Yep.
That's what I wrote. Because it's his rookie year. These young, impressionable men, they are just that. And if Caleb Williams feels at all threatened from a physical standpoint, play in, play out, he's going to have a rough go at it. So this offensive line shoulders the burden in Chicago. I think the defense holds up their end of the bargain. That's really the only burning question I have. Can they stay healthy up front?
Bears last season, 7 wins, projected 8.5. A lot of Bears fans going to, what is it, 4 wins? What are the casinos up in the Chicago area? They're betting heavy because it's minus 130 to the over right now.
Tinley Park, wherever I've been to a few country concerts outside of a casino in the burbs.
And the question is just Caleb Williams, rookie quarterback. What is it? If he has a Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud rookie season, playoff team. Over is an easy lock.
Yep.
They got the talent there to do so. If he has a, Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young, and I was not going to put that on him because Bryce had no, but like that tier of rookie season, they're not. They're going to probably end up in that 7-10 range. But they do have the 30th hardest schedule in the NFL. They have an easy go of it. Obviously, that helps. I believe they finished last in the division last year. That helps. But I have a theory for you, or I have a question for you as a former O-lineman. And if you're assembling an O-line, and I know Nate Davis has only played right guard his entire career, and you spent some money on him, you're trying to justify this pick. But if I'm building an O-line, and Tevin Jenkins was the right tackle coming out of Oklahoma State, he's played right guard at times, obviously when Nate Davis went down, I want my 2 best offensive linemen together.
So I'd put right guard Tevin Jenkins. I'd put Darnell.
That's what I want that.
I want the 2 Bash Bros together.
Yes, I want my double team. I want a double team combo that's elite. Because if you have one double that gives you a bubble on the offensive line in terms of gives you that space.
We're looking to drive a wedge in the force field that is the defensive line. I don't care if
the
entire line moves like a wave or if there's a javelin punch through in the B gap, because that's what you're going to get. Front side combination, center guard, that's a single. Tackle guard, it's a double. Tackle tight end, triple. So the front side play that you're talking about is a double block between Tevin Jenkins at right guard, Darnell Wright at right tackle, and they are just going ass to ass, 3-legged race, running these defenders to the second level. And if it's on the backside, you get an opportunity for Tevin Jenkins to start so backside, it's A, B, C. Front side, single, double, triple. Okay. So on the backside, you get that B block with your guard and your tackle. The guard smacks that 3 technique in the face. On his way to the second level, you get the second level guy blocked. Darnell Wright bear mauls the 3 technique. Next thing you know, you're riding that wave as the running back and you're out the back door. It's either he's going to hit his head on the goalpost or it's going to be an explosive run. So, I agree with you. Put your 2 guys together.
Put them together so then you know which side needs help. You know your left side needs help. You know if you get whether it's pass play and you're chipping or whether it's the run game and where you want to go, you have a side that you can rely on to get their job done.
And you can drift. If you're a QB, you can drift left, okay? Mm-hmm. I know that we are locked down on the right side. That means I'm going to take the snap and I can mosey left, change that launch point a little bit. Some of that stuff's built into the game plan. Sometimes quarterbacks just have a real understanding of where the weak spots are.
All right. I'm glad that you agreed with my theory there on putting those guys together. But unfortunately, right now, as it stands, they have Tevin Jenkins penciled in at left guard, Nate Davis at right guard. We'll see how long that lasts, given Nate Davis's injury history.
Brutal.
I'm up next. Give me those NFC North team, Minnesota Vikings. And we're kind of slim pickings right now. But I do think this Vikings, especially defensively, Brian Flores, there's a floor that he gives you. I know their talent's not otherworldly, but it wasn't otherworldly last year.
No matter how bad you suck at your job. What did he say to it? You suck at your job. You are bad at football. There is a floor, though.
And defensive players will respond to that, though. So
they will.
6.5 wins is their projection. A lot of people buying into the Vikings. Minus 135 to the over. Now, they do have the 5th hardest schedule in the NFL. A lot of that's because they play in a difficult division now. But they added some pieces. So, obviously, the losses are huge. Kirk Cousins, Daniil Hunter, DJ Wanham. Those are big losses. No sugarcoating it. That's your pass rush. That's your quarterback. 2 of the most valuable positions in the NFL. Gone. Out the window. But Kirk Cousins was obviously post-Achilles. He was gone for most of the year anyway, or majority of the year anyway. So, they brought in Sam Darnold at QB, Jonathan Grenard to kind of replace as a pass rusher, Dallas Turner to replace their first rounder that they gave up a ton for as pass rusher, Aaron Jones, help out in the running game because this running game was an abject disaster last season, especially a lot of that because of who they were trotting out a running back. Blake Cashman at linebacker should be an upgrade, Shaq Griffin, and gosh, I'm blanking on the other corner they just added here.
This is your realm of expertise.
Stephon Gilmore. There you go. So they revamped this roster.
By the way, I've been calling him Stephen Gilmore for the better part of the last 8 years.
I call him Stefan.
And now I saw it on paper, and I was like, that's not Steven at all. I just guess I've been calling him Gilmore because nobody's corrected me.
There is like people will pronounce that Steven sometimes.
Yep.
And so we need like there needs to be
with Rashad.
naming guidelines.
He went by Rashad one time, and I was like, now you just screwed the whole thing up.
There needs to be like an AI guidelines at the hospitals nowadays where you have a kid, you're like, here's what I'd like to name him.
Yep.
And then it just like it gives you the spelling of like that's what I like phonetically. I want to name him XYZ. And then here's the spelling, so we don't have people just going off on their own.
Maybe we find best names next episode.
That's good. It's name
If you got
scouting.
any good ones, put them in the chat. If there's any good names that come to mind right now, put them in the
I
chat.
feel like name, what I have this taken draft season all the time, will bump you up on draft boards. If you have a name that is cool, it sticks in your mind, and you think about that guy more. If your name is
Kool-Aid
Travis
McKinstry.
Smith, you get a round bump downwards. Guys aren't thinking about it. But if your name's Kool-Aid McKinstry, which is one of the wildest names there is.
One of the best DNs I ever played against was a white guy from Washington State named Travis, and I don't think I ever saw him play after that. It could be because his name is just Travis.
Travis Jones, just like that guy's not making
No shot.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's my team.
You're up.
I'm going to go with the Saints. I'm going to take in a little story time again. When I was a wee lad, and Sean Payton and Drew Brees were running the show down there in New Orleans, and they had tremendous success offensively. This team in New Orleans was built inside out, and stick with me here, inside out, meaning they prioritized having ass kickers at the offensive guard position. Now, granted, they had really good tackles as well, but the real studs on that offensive line were Carl Nix and Jari Evans, and it was Ben Grubbs, right?
Yeah.
Those are the three names that when I got in the league, Aaron Kromer drafted me. Aaron Kromer's the O-line coach in Buffalo. He was the O-line coach in New Orleans. So he showed these guys the tools of the trade, and they were just freaks, and they did what they needed to do. But those are the tapes I watched coming out. And I understood the importance of having a clean dish, a clean pocket to step up in. And with the Saints, it was Drew Brees. He had to be able to see over a clean window to throw that thing, deliver a strike. The New Orleans Saints today are built a little bit differently, aren't they, Mike? They've got two guys at the tackle position, which have been drafted, I think, with the 17th pick a few years ago and the 15th pick this past year. That's Trevor Penning and
I think it was higher than that. It was Fuaga.
Fuaga was
right?
the 13th. The tackle situation, I think you can help out tackles. I think if you shouldn't overdraft tackles. You should overdraft guards, in my opinion, and help tackles. You can't really help the guards.
No bias whatsoever there in that.
Can't really help the guards, so you might as well get studs so they don't require much TLC. My question for New Orleans is Fuaga going to be able to get up to speed? I know he's had some back issues this preseason, which doesn't really bode well for the length of the NFL football season. And for Penning, is he able to continue to develop? A lot of questions about Trevor Penning in New Orleans. Is he going to be able to hold up, even as a football player, let alone being a first rounder? People want to see more production from him. And I know Derek Carr talked all off season long about how these guys are on a better page with one another. The communication is paramount, blah, blah, blah. Well, the franchise rests on the success of these offensive tackles. I'll be quite honest with you, because at the end of the day, if one tackle is getting beat, we can account for that. We can do some things schematically. If two tackles are beat, buddy, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day, brother. So you need to get these tackles figured out. And I'm not here to say Fuaga's not a good player. He still hasn't played in the regular season, so I'm waiting to see how that looks. But I can tell you, one, it can be okay if you have issues. Two, you got real issues, brother.
Yeah, that's was mine as well. And before I get to the Saints, though, I wanted to go back because you mentioned Carl Nix. I don't think a lot of people know Carl Nix's story. New Orleans Saints, who was at one point the highest paid guard in the NFL, goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, has turf toe,
nearly loses his toe,
and gets strep from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers locker room that ended his career. 5 years in, his career is over.
Would have been a Hall of Famer.
He would have been a Hall of Famer. I think he ended up suing the Bucs.
Yep,
wins the lawsuit because of the state or whatever of them not cleaning their locker room regularly. But it kind of just got swept under the rug after. Like, people don't know because he was guard, but he was as good as it got in the NFL.
So Jari Evans stuck around, but Carl Nix was like the guy that Jari like held his hand and walked around and was like, I need to learn everything from Carl Nicks.
He was.
And my God, if you missed it, I feel bad for you. If you're a football purist, go check out some Carl Nicks stuff. Go look at the Saints O-line from back then. And it's Jari Evans, Carl Nicks, Ben Grubbs, field day.
But I will say the problem I have with the Saints team and why I'm more than glad to let you take them, even though their win projected total is 7.5. And they have the 28th hardest schedule in the NFL. So not a hard schedule by any means, is because their personnel on offense is just so mismatched. You have one of the best receiving cores down the field in the NFL. Rashid Shaheed is up there with fast receivers in the NFL. Chris Olave wins at will on the vertical tree. A.T. Perry, their wide receiver 3, is a big-bodied vertical threat. It's what he was coming out of Wake Forest. These are downfield, skinny guys. But they do not have tackles to go downfield. Now, you can do play action, and they're going to definitely. But I worry with Derek Carr, just how he's played his entire career. He panics. He does not, even when his O-line is giving him time, if he doesn't trust his O-line, you see it in his performance again and again and again. And obviously a lot of that was the ankle injury suffered. It was after that ankle injury suffered, what was it, week 16 or whatever with the Raiders. Guy comes blindside, breaks his ankle. That season down the drain. He's never quite recaptured that since. And a lot of it is the trust when he's not playing behind an elite offensive line. He just doesn't have it. And this is not going to be an elite offensive line. This is a worrisome when you're throwing out Trevor Penning, Talia. Making them both flip sides also, which is wild to me. Talia, right tackle his entire collegiate career, making him play left side. Trevor Penning has been left side his entire collegiate and NFL career. Now right side?
Flip-flop.
I don't know. I'm not buying that as the quick fix for these guys. So
they tried to make me and Josh Sitton flip sides when Josh Sitton was signed to the Bears, and we both looked at each other, and he said, F no. Like, we looked at Dow Loggins, and we were both like, go get somebody else to switch their job, dude. It's hard. It's harder than people realize. They say it's like wiping with your other hand. I never tried that. It's messing up with my left.
Broke my right.
You broke your right hand wiping your ass.
No. I mean, you felt those buns. They're hard. No, I broke my right hand at a bar on a bachelor party on a punching bag game. Shattered right down the middle. Had to hold a beer like this the entire weekend. It was brutal. We were playing like drinking games. I just couldn't. Right hand was broken. But wiping lefty, it took some getting used to. I had some mishaps.
You just got to go to the shower at this point.
Exactly. Had to buy a bidet. But all right, 4 more teams to go. We'll get to them after.
I did the Saints. You're up.
Quick break right here. All right, I'm up, and I'm going Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, they won 4 games last year.
Pick.
Yeah, they're only projected to win 6.5. But I believe. And they were a different team when Kyler Murray was in. Obviously didn't have him for most of last season. The roster is still tough. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of their free agent additions aren't anything to get me too excited. Jonah Williams, going to likely be our starting right tackle. Jesse Jones along the defensive line. Sean Murphy-Bunting at corner. Obviously, we just said Darius Robinson, your 1 first-rounder, starting on the non-football inactive list, I believe, missing the first 4 games. But you got Marvin Harrison Jr. You got yourself a number 1 wide receiver. You lost Hollywood Brown. You lost Rondale Moore. Not massive losses given what they gave to that offense last year. Lost DJ Humphries, but obviously that's why you drafted Paris Johnson the year prior. My one burning question is Jonathan Gannon the type of defensive mind to get this basically no-name defense? You know, your average fan probably knows Budda Baker. They're going to have a tough time naming another guy that's starting on this Cardinals roster. Can he get them to punch above their weight class? Because they are probably in the worst division in the NFL, at least like from their perspective, to have a bad defense. The Rams, Seahawks, 49ers is a freaking gauntlet for any defensive coordinator. So 6 games against those 3 offenses is going to leave you battle tested. So I like what this offense, I think, can do in Arizona. I believe in that side of the ball. But can Jonathan Gannon live up to his billing as this defensive guru and get this defense to play above its weight class?
I heard a story about Jonah Williams when he was coming out of college. I believe he was the first team All-SEC left tackle.
Yep. Coming out of Bama.
There was an NFL coach who will be redacted here, but essentially we were watching them on film during the offseason, me and a couple guys that played, and somebody was like, yeah, Jonah Williams, when he came out, a coach asked him if he was willing to play right tackle. He said, with all due respect, coach, I'm the first team all SEC left tackle. Now he's the right tackle for the Arizona Cardinals.
Well, he played right tackle his freshman year in Alabama too,
but not after he made the All SEC team.
Yeah, that was a little too.
I just always think stuff like that's
him.
funny. Okay, well, Welcome back to Earth. Welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders. And growing up in Charlottesville, Virginia, it's right down the 29 corridor, 95, taking you to the Capitol. I'd say this: the fans are a rabid bunch. Okay, you know what? If you're not a Cowboys fan, you're a you know what fan in Commanders fan in Virginia. And now these people have hope. They have faith. They got a star. I mean, some people were arguing that the Bears should have taken this guy instead of Caleb Williams because of the things he was able to do in college. Jaden Daniels is a special player, and I got to meet him in New York after he won the Heisman. Really nice dude too. Strikes me as somebody that would take to a locker room really well, and the guys in the locker room would take to him. I think that there's going to be a renaissance for some of these players in Washington. I think about the veterans they brought into the building. I feel like the guys that have been kind of sitting in the shadows in Washington in obscurity, not necessarily obscurity, but I think about a guy like Terry McLaurin who could go for 2,100 yards this year if everything goes perfectly in Washington. 2,100 a stretch, but you hear what I'm saying. There is a lot to be gained from having this guy, Jaden Daniels, in the building. He might be the tide that raises all ships in Washington. I like the fact that they've gone in a different direction in management, ownership. They've brought in the best of all worlds in Washington, people that have built elite teams in the past. So I trust it. My burning question is, can Jaden Daniels take a look at the film from all the guys that have come before him that have a similar skill set and glean from it that he needs to protect his body above all else? Because he's a guy that invites contact, and he is in need of about 3 double bacon cheeseburgers at this current point in his life. So I would say, if you're not going to eat the double bacon cheeseburgers, take a sliding course. Get down, because your team needs you. And I know Dan Quinn emphasizes it. And I know that if I'm an offensive lineman, my eyes roll back in my head every single time I see him get hit, because number one, it's avoidable. And number two, we can't win if you're not on the field.
I'll say this. I know I poo-pooed the Commanders offseason on our best and worst offseasons episode, saying that I just thought at the key spots they messed up in terms of not giving him the protection and getting Cliff Kingsbury as your offense coordinator. Like, I thought those were big decisions that they kind of messed up. But I like the change in vision that the Commanders have from a front office perspective. They came in with a ton of cap space. And old school Commanders, Dan Snyder, would have spent it all on one Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt. They would have gone out and 2 free agents. Boom, we're back to prime time. We won the offseason sort of thing. They didn't do that. They went out and signed a bunch of guys for a bunch of mid to lower tier contracts just to kind of smooth out this roster, give a better floor than what we had a year ago. And so kudos to that. I think the long-term vision is better now in Washington than I've seen it, again, over the Dan Snyder era, which never had a long-term vision whatsoever. So I like that perspective. But just the biggest question is, how do you keep Jaden Daniels from getting killed? And I think Cliff Kingsbury and his strategy that we saw in the preseason was to throw every wide screen and quick game play in the book at opposing defenses and basically just turn this into what looked like a college offense, just in terms of the ball's out of your hand. We know we can't trust our O-line. That's my answer. And I worry that that's going to be his only answer all season long. And it's just going to be tough to get anything going down the football field and tough to get Jaden Daniels into any sort of rhythm and sustain drives because you are so bad up front. So that's my worry. I think it's just a tough situation for Jaden Daniels to walk into and have a lot of success overnight, in my opinion.
Okay, so that's my Commanders pick. Who you got now? 2
more left. And it's the Panthers and Giants. And I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers. Wow. I'll let you have the New York Giants, the worst team in the NFL a year ago, 2-15, only projected for 4.5 wins. But the people believe out in Carolina, that's at -135 right now because their additions this offseason, Jadeveon Clowney, Deontay Johnson, wide receiver 1 there who they traded for from the Steelers, Robert Hunt, new guard, Damian Lewis, new starting guard, Xavier Legette, your first-round wide receiver, and Jonathan Brooks, new starting running back when he does come back from that ACL tear. Just the burning question is, did they do enough for Bryce? And not only did they do enough for Bryce, is Bryce enough when they give him enough? It was for a number one overall pick as bad as we've seen since Jared Goff, right? I think it was worse than Trevor. It was worse than Joe Burrow. It was worse than, again, we've seen since Jared Goff came in the league and just looked completely lost. But then what happened with Jared Goff? He got a new OC. He got some talent around him. And dude's been to a Super Bowl. Dude's been to an NFC Championship game now. He's been worthy of that number one overall pick. So is that what we're going to see from Bryce, or are we just going to see?
Yeah, and I root for guys
flounder?
like Bryce. I mean, I root for guys like him to be able to come out of the smoke and turn 3 and not check the rear view and everything be okay, because I know how hard it is to be a player in this league. And I don't know what it's like to be a quarterback, but if it's more stressful than being an O-line, God bless anybody who signs up to play this game and be the quarterback, because you're the quarterback, you're the number one pick, you're all this, and your team is bottom of the league. I just hope he finds a way to get out there and find some confidence. I hope that fans in Charlotte support him, because that's their quarterback. And I mean, you got him contractually, so you got to make it work. Dave Canales is a dude that was coaching like high school football a few years ago. So he's throwing his effort hat on. I really am rooting for him in Charlotte as well. I said a number of times, I'm a Virginia guy. So you're either a Commanders fan, a Cowboys fan, or a Panthers fan. I'm none of them. Okay. But in this instance, I'm a Bryce Young fan, and I'm a fan of redemption. So I hope he finds a way.
Have you read Dave Canales' book by chance?
No, I haven't. I'm just learning to read right now, actually. What's it called?
We should start a book club where it's just reading books by NFL coaches. It's called This Marriage, The Question That Changed Everything. And it's a well-meaning book, but I shouldn't laugh at it. It's about how to sustain a long whatever marriage, but it's also about
it's not about football. It's about marriage.
It's about marriage.
Okay.
It's just it's not something you would expect.
David,
tell me he's got range. But yeah, I hope what I saw from him last year in Tampa Bay, I'm very encouraged about. This is a different realm of offense in Carolina than what we saw a year ago. It's much, much more suited. Obviously, when you had a short quarterback in Baker Mayfield, and he could succeed in that offense.
We're going to see more receivers out on routes.
Yeah, well, they actually have receivers now.
Because what we saw last year was, 8-man protection and 2 guys trying to get open, and Bryce Young praying.
And no one that could get down the football field. So they got pieces now.
Okay, so I got the Giants. Okay, as you guys know, I work at the CBS Sports Studio in New York, every Sunday on That Other Pregame Show. And what do we talk about a lot? The New York Giants. We also talk the Jets, but today we're talking the G-Man. Daniel Jones, a guy who's coming off of a really bad knee injury on a team that lost Saquon Barkley, one of their superstars, somebody that's a fan favorite. And this guy's reeling, and Brian Daboll's reeling, and they're looking for answers. But they've got a guy named Malik Neighbors who came in, and it's truly a spectacle to watch play the game of football. But my burning question is, are they going to be able to hold up long enough up front? I know they went and got some depth. They added some guys this offseason. Andrew Thomas is getting healthy. But at the end of the day, you got to protect. When you got a guy like Malik Neighbors who can create separation at the top of the route, who can go and run by some of these cover 2 looks or find the soft space in the zones, you need a little bit of time. And for Daniel Jones, whose internal clock is obviously a little bit quicker because of the things that he's been through physically, from a lack of success standpoint, from a media standpoint in New York, I really hope. My burning question is, are they going to hold up long enough for Daniel Jones to allow Malik Neighbors to drag this team out of the mud, okay? Because Malik, I think, is a talent like that. You can throw to him a million times. He's going to come down with the ball 99,999 times. It's kind of like when Jamar came into the league, and, I'm not comparing Joe Burrow, Daniel Jones, but what I am saying is when you have a dude who can do it, you use him, and you use him a lot. And even the defense knows it, and he still finds a way to get open. That's how Stella's going to get her groove back in New York with Daniel Jones. I hope it's sooner rather than later. I wish nothing but the best for these guys, all these teams, top to bottom. We talked about CMC's health at the top. I'm talking about Daniel Jones's health at the bottom. But at the end of the day, it comes down to protecting this guy and allowing for some of these offensive concepts to take place and have success.
If you don't use him, you lose him, as we saw with Odell Beckham. They'll use him. They have to use him. He is your offense at this point because, which my burning question is, will Joe Shane Pick step up to the plate? They've drafted a lot of guys in the top 100 the past 3 drafts since he took over. 11 guys, 11 top 100 picks. I'm struggling to point to one of them that is a impact game-changing sort of player.
Tommy
2022,
DeVito.
going back, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, picks 5 and picks 7 in that draft. Evan Neal's not even slated to start now this season. Wan'Dale Robinson, Josh Azudu, Cordell Flott. Wan'Dale probably the closest thing to a hit in that, but he's like a semi-dynamic slot wide receiver. We just saw one of those guys in Jahan Dotson go for like a 3rd, 5th swap. So 2023, Deonte Banks at corner, John Michael Schmitz at center, Jalen Hyatt at wide receiver. Jury's still out on those guys. And then obviously this year, Malik Neighbor, Tyler Nubin, Andrew Phillips. We'll see.
Shout out to my guy, Aaron
out.
Stinney. Shout out to my guy, Aaron Stinney. Went to the same high school as me. St. Anne's Belfield. Stand up. Stab boys. What up? Aaron Stinney, his dad was my dean. He used to get me in trouble.
Your high school had a dean?
Yeah, my high school had a dean.
Was it like a...
When you're dealing with badasses like me, you got to bring the dean in to get him out of class sometimes and say, hey, you got to behave, bro. You got to behave.
Was that a common,
Shout out to
common
Aaron
occurrence?
Stinney.
Aaron Stinney. All right, but they're 11 picks last 3 years. We need them to turn out, right? That's how you, when you go through a rebuild, the likes of which they did,
You got to hit.
you got to hit. And so far, more misses than hits on that plate. There you have it. To recap here, we have me with Lions, Packers, Cowboys, Seahawks, Bucks, Vikings, Cardinals, Panthers. Kyle with 49ers, Eagles, Falcons, Rams, Bears, Saints, Commanders, Giants. I kind of liked my AFC.
I hate
better.
that the Bears and the Saints are neighbors.
I kind of like my AFC team better. How do you feel about yours?
Yeah, same. I do. I mean, there's some not necessarily do-overs, but when you look at this thing on the scale that we've done it at, it makes me feel a little bit bad about where I put the Bears, or it makes me feel about where I put the Saints. They're right next to one another.
Yeah, Saints.
Same area code. Not a good thing.
Saints, I was letting you take that one all day long. All right. Some quick picks for division winners, wild card, playoffs. I'm going Lions, Eagles, Seahawks, Falcons in that order. Packers, 49ers, Cowboys as my wild cards. I have Lions being your Super Bowl representatives from the NFC. It's their year. So I got the Jets, Lions as our representatives.
So I've got Lions, Eagles, Rams, Falcons.
Yeah.
And now you're going to help me out on so I did my division
So then
winners.
49ers probably considering.
Yeah. Sorry. The Niners, obviously, they're the top of my list. So I'm trying to figure out how to get the wild card. So this is one thing. Can you explain to me in 20 seconds how this wild card thing works? Because I never asked.
The next 3 teams with the most wins.
So it's pretty much like these 4 win, and then whoever the next 3 from this conference are.
With the most wins.
That's easy peasy.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, Lions, Eagles, Niners, Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go Rams, Bears, Packers.
Oh, thank you. It had to be nice and throw.
So they'll play each other twice in a row, maybe?
Could be.
Week 18, week 19?
That'd be sweet.
I'm not talking
It's
to you.
happened before. Last time it happened, they played Cardinals 2008, week 18. Then they went there for the wild card game. It was the OT game, Rodgers fumble touchdown at the end.
They're all OT games with that, you know what.
That one hurt. I was there, and it hurt. No, it wasn't 08. It was 09. It would have been 09. Bad one. All right, who's the Super Bowl pick then?
My Super Bowl pick is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs playing against the Detroit Lions.
Oh, we both like the Lions. Lions fans getting a little love. I don't think they know how to handle
I
this.
hate Detroit, but I
Hey,
got to say it. I mean, you had them dead to rights in San Francisco last year, Santa Clara, or wherever the hell the 49ers are, somewhere in that Bay Area, okay? You got to finish. You got to finish, okay? Come on, Lions.
High expectations. They don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know what to do with themselves with everyone giving them love. It's a good place to be. It's better than.
It's like that dating show where they bring a guy in from the back, they bring a girl in from the back. The girl's really interested in meeting a guy. She thinks he's cute, and then she's like, "Should we kiss?" And he's like,
"Yeah." Pushes the button.
That's the Lions. Like, come on, just kiss her already. Let's get to the Super Bowl. Let's do this thing.
All right, programming notes next week. Obviously, Labor Day on Monday, no show. We'll be back Tuesday, Thursday. Pete Prisco going to be on the Tuesday show. He'll be on the Tuesday show all throughout the season. Going to get some nice takes from him. And then make sure to check us out Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network we'll be doing that show every week during the season as well. So
thanks for coming.
Make sure to like, subscribe, follow wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube. Really helps us out as we're starting out here. Until next time, keep pushing.